Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Bob.
What you doing?
Oh, just chillin' like a villain.
Oh, that's cool. This conversation would be really boring to watch.
Yep.
Hey everybody, this is Jordan, and this is a tutorial for animating dialogue in Brickfilms. This is a tutorial that I've been wanting to do for a long time because I think it's really important. To me, it's like the difference between having good acting and bad acting in a film. It doesn't matter how good your script is, if the acting is off, it just doesn't feel right. And the same thing applies with animating dialogue. The better your dialogue animation is, the more convincing your characters are going to be, and the better your voice acting is going to sound. So I have a couple goals with this tutorial. The first is to show you how I match my dialogue animation to my voice acting. And then the second thing I want to do is just give you some general advice and tips on how to make your dialogue animation more interesting. So to kind of explain the first one a little bit about how to match your dialogue animation to your voice acting, I think the first question that I'm often asked is, do I record my voices before animating or after? And in my case, I always record my voices before, and let me tell you why. The first reason is because it's so nice to have your voice acting as a reference when you're animating, so that, for example, if your character is angry, you can have that voice acting as a reference to kind of know how you can animate your minifigure so that he looks as angry as he's supposed to sound. And the second reason that I like to record first is if you have a program like iStopMotion or DragonFrame, they usually almost always have a feature where you can import your voice acting into your project so that you can animate to it. And I'm going to show you that just really quickly in iStopMotion because that's what I have. So just as an example, I'm going to show you a little bit of my Pokemon Go video with Bridge and Gus and Commander playing some Pokemon. So as you can see, this is iStopMotion, and this is kind of the timeline down here with all the frames. And as you can see, there's this green bar above that has my voice acting in it. And it's really nice because it shows you the waveforms of the voice acting. So I know exactly when a character is about to speak. And because I have that, I know exactly when I need to start a new movement that I want to animate. And so that's why it's so easy to match my dialogue animation to my voice acting, because it's right there in iStopMotion and I can just follow it along as I'm animating. So the way you import this in, if you don't know how to do it already, is down here there's three buttons. There's recording, there's view, compositing, and so the one we want to be in is view. And the last heading down here says soundtrack. Obviously, soundtrack kind of implies music, but it doesn't have to be music. You can import any audio file into here. And the way you do that is you click this little cog, and then right now it says replace because I already have an audio file in there, but it'll say like add in or whatever. I can't remember what it says, but you can just add it in from there. And okay, I know some of you are probably thinking, hey, I don't have iStopMotion or something cool like that. What am I supposed to do? Well, never fear, my friends. There is another way. It's not as nice, but it is possible. And I'm going to show you a little clip from Clone Training Center, because when I made Clone Training Center, I didn't have this feature, and so I had to do it this kind of other way. So here's a little quick clip from Clone Training Center.
I ain't got a lot of time here, so let's get this party started.
So in this shot, Commander says, I ain't got a lot of time here, so let's get this party started. So when I did this technique before, what I would do is I would look at the sentence and decide on which words I wanted to have movements. So on this particular shot, I decided I wanted to have a movement on the word I, time, and started. So then when I go into iStopMotion or whatever to animate it, I would make a movement for I, and then I would take a bunch of extra frames, more than I knew I needed, and then I would put his arm down, and then I would take a few extra frames with his arm down, and then I would start the next movement to bring his other arm up, take a bunch of extra frames, move the arm down, take a bunch of extra frames, and the process kind of continues. So I would just do the movement, extra frames, go to the next movement, extra frames, and on it goes. And then once I import my animation into an editing program like Adobe Premiere or iMovie, I can then take my voice acting and the animation and then cut down the extra frames that I had until it matches with my voice acting. So like I said, this method isn't like super nice. It's basically just good guesswork, but that's the only other way I know how to do it without using a frame capture program. So my recommendation definitely is that if you don't have a frame capture program already, I would go and get one because it just makes your life so much easier and it's going to make your animation that much better. Alrighty, let's talk about some general tips and advice on animating dialogue. I think the first thing to kind of point out is to realize what you're animating with. You're animating with a minifigure who has one face and no way to make any kind of facial expressions other than switching out the heads or doing post-production effects to do facial movements. I'm going to kind of go under the assumption that we don't have those two options and that we're just stuck with the one face that the minifigure has, which is often the case because sometimes it's hard to find other heads that match with different emotions, and doing post-production After Effects kind of stuff is a whole other thing that I don't even know how to do. So if you're looking for a tutorial on that, I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. So since we're stuck with a minifigure that only has one face, we have to be able to compensate for that lack of facial expression through body movement. Because if you think about it, when you're talking to a real person, so much of the information is conveyed through the eyes and through the mouth and through the eyebrows, just through all of the facial expressions. So with a minifigure, it's lacking all of that. And so in order to kind of convey the emotion, you need to compensate with kind of more exaggerated movements. I think, the way that I animate my characters in Brickfilms is pretty unrealistic to what a real person would do, but I think it's necessary to exaggerate those movements so you can convey the emotion clearly. So with that being said, let's think of all the things that you can do with a minifigure. You can bend him forward and backwards, you can move his arms, you can move his head, you can move his little hands, and you can kind of bobble him around a little bit. So there's a bunch of different things you can do, and you can combine all those different movements to get quite a varied set of different movements that you can make to convey different emotions and feelings. And I think it's really important not to just use like one or two different movements, because it gets really boring if the only thing your character does when he talks is move his arms up and down, maybe a little slight bend every once in a while. It's not interesting to watch, and it doesn't convey the emotion as well as it could. So to kind of demonstrate this, I'm going to show you two clips that use the same voice acting, but the first is going to use kind of minimal, kind of boring movements, and the second one's going to use more varied movements that make it more interesting. So let's check that out. Can we please go home now? I'm just really scared, Can we please go home now? I'm just really scared, Alrighty, so I hope you can agree that the second one just looks a lot better. It's more interesting to watch and it conveys the emotion much better than the first. So I have one more tip for you guys, and it involves voice acting. My recommendation is that when you're recording your lines, don't be afraid to improvise, because I have found that when I improvise my lines, not only does the voice acting turn out better, but it often gives me more material to work with when I'm animating. The perfect example of this is Francis in LEGO Fighting Championship. Pretty much every line that I did for Francis was improv'd. I mean, I kind of had a general idea of what I wanted to say, but then I just kind of went off. And when I did that, I kind of naturally stuttered and made mistakes when I was speaking, and I didn't correct those. I kept them because it just fits with his character. And then I was able to use those stutters and those mistakes in the animation to kind of really sell his character. So I just wanted to give you a quick example of that.
Oh, hey there, magician, how you? That's good. How do you plan on taking on a magician? No, not you're the magician. How do you plan on taking on Officer Melody Day?
All right, guys, so that is pretty much it. That is my tutorial on matching your dialogue animation to your voice acting, and also some little tips on how to make your dialogue animation better. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave comments. I will answer as many as I can. And if you want to see more tutorials, let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll try to do them. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.